I'm here to show you how I made this tiered abaya right here. I made the inner black dress last year for Eid al-Fitr, and I lately made the tiered abaya just around this Ramadan, and I'm now finally getting into having the time to give you this tutorial. I also made the little head chain, which I probably will show you at a later time. So if you want to see how this abaya was made, then please keep on watching. Please be sure to follow, subscribe, follow my social media, and also engage for more content. Yeah, I do DIY fashion and everything related to DIY. Hope you enjoy. Have a good one.
The first thing you're gonna do is get your sewing pattern and print it out. Be sure that it's at the 100% scale, and it is designed to fit both A4 and US letter pages. Now here's mine printed out. After that, I just go ahead and actually wash my fabrics. Now, it's very important to wash your fabrics whenever you're doing any sewing project. Then I go back to taping the pattern while that's all going. So to start off, I lay my first page down, and then I overlap every one to line up the diamonds that are on the line right there. Then I usually take a little piece of tape and tape that piece together, just kind of hold it in place. And then I go back in after I've finished like maybe 2 or 3 rows. Then I go back and use a wider tape to go ahead and tape everything together to make sure it's like one big paper. So here's a quick time lapse of me laying all those pages down. Make sure again to line up the diamonds and give it just a tiny piece of tape right there to just hold it in place while you be sure to fit every page up to make sure everything's lined up. Again, you go down to the second row, B1, and line up the diamonds and tape them. This is what the pattern should be looking like after you're finished taping it up together. Just this huge piece of paper. Then you start cutting your size out. I'm gonna cut the size large for my abaya. By this time you should have all these pieces, and then I go grab the laundry, i.e. the fabrics. At this point, I'm preparing the fabric to lay it out for cutting. I simply fold it long ways in half, simply because the back piece does need to be cut on fold, and then most of the pieces need to be cut times 2. So it's easier to be sure that you get everything cut out all at once and correctly. I simply play around with the pattern pieces to make sure they line up properly and they are at the right grain, and then I begin cutting them out. I'm lining up the shoulder seams of the back and front pieces. Then I'm gonna sew that at the shoulders. I'm also going to serge that as well after I'm done. Now that the shoulders are done, I'm going to do the side seams as well. Then I'm going to sew up the two pieces of tiers together. This is simply to just join them together to make one. And I of course do that to both sets of tiers. So after I've sewn that two pieces together, I go ahead and also serge the edge of it, and then I go ahead and gather using my gathering foot. This just makes the process of gathering so easy. You can get one on Amazon. It will be down in my description. I go ahead and gather both tier layers, and after that I'm going to go ahead and press all these seams open. And these are what the gathers look like. Next up, I've put my sleeve folded together, and then I sew across the long edge, and then I prepare to set it into the armhole of the bodice part of the abaya. I simply just go around like normal, stitching it through. You may need to gather the top of the sleeve a little bit just for it to fit properly and give it a nice loose flowy look. And here we have all our layers. We simply are going to go ahead and attach the middle piece to the top, then the final tier to the second tier, and you just simply go ahead and straight stitch it and then serge the edge of it as well. Here I am finally ironing all those seams that I had done. I ironed the shoulders, side seams, tiered seams, and also the sleeve seams as well. Now this step is very important when sewing any garment. It gives your project a very professional finish, and it doesn't look like you just did it yourself. So here I am lining up the first tier to the back bodice. I simply use a pin to mark where the middle of the back bodice is, and then I line that up with the seam that we created before of the two pieces of the tier piece. And then I go ahead and sew it from edge to edge, and again I go ahead and serge the whole edge afterwards. Now this is what you should be having at this point. Then I kind of line up the middle seam of both tiers, and then I kind of try to pin it in place. Now with the gathering foot, I ended up having my gathers just a tiny bit short, so what I did was just took a seam ripper and loosened a few stitches to kind of make it stretch all the way out. Again, then I pinned the matching seams and sewed that together, and I of course will serge that edge afterwards. Now here I'm holding the back of the bodice by the neckline, and I'm marking that middle part as well with a pin, and then I will attach the collar to that seam right there to the middle of the back piece, and then I go ahead and sew it all together. Now that it's pinned together, I simply take my pins and pin it all the way around, and then go ahead and sew it all together and serge the edge. I'm not going to do any fancy stitching. This is just me now hemming the bottom of the edge, and here is the final look.